This image keeps showing up and is usually accompanied by a long speech about how bland new logos are in comparison to what they replaced. Unfortunately, what most people fail to realize is how misleading it is. That's what we will be going over in this video. Let's get started. Let's start by examining the logos on the left. Each logo is very much unique. Each uses a different typeface and they are all stylized. Looking at the designs on the right gives a much different picture. The visual elements that help people remember them have all been stripped away. Why? If you noticed, we didn't refer to the designs on the right as logos. This is a hint at the main problem. 4 of the 6 designs on the right are not actually the logos. Instead, they are half of the logo. Let's look at the Microsoft brand guidelines to better understand what this means. This is a page from Microsoft's brand guidelines that details how the logo is to be used, or in some cases, how it's not to be used. If we look at the example of the logo, we see that there is actually a visual element that was not included in the side-by-side example. Side note, here at Statement, we usually refer to these visual elements as icons. In this guide, however, it is referred to as a symbol. Now, if we look at the paragraph of red text, we learned that the symbol must be used as part of the logo in all communications. The symbol alone is only used as a favorites icon by MS-Com and the Microsoft Store. No other use is allowed at this time. Another way to say this is that the icon can be used by itself in some cases, but the word mark is never to be used without the icon. If we go back to the image of the logos, we see that the icon is not present, which is against the rules and never should have been shown this way. In most cases, if a company has a logo that includes an icon, then their brand guidelines will also state either the same as Microsoft's, or even that simply the icon is the full logo and that no word mark is required. For this example, we will be including the word marks. Including both the icon and the word mark, the story changes a lot. We now see that most of the logos on the right are not actually bland at all. Further, there are a couple of other benefits. Benefit 1 is that we can now read the word mark easier. Benefit 2, the logos now scale better. Benefit 3, given it's separated, the visual element can now be used for things such as app icons, website favicons, and so on, which the old versions on the left were mostly incapable of. Benefit 4, given visual elements transcend language barriers, these logos now work significantly better around the globe. There is still a problem with this image. To learn about that, let's look at Google's brand guidelines. Here we see a section of Google's brand guidelines which says, "We'll usually ask you to use the full color version of our logo on a white background. The gray or white versions are also acceptable when there are constraints." If you look at most brand guides, you will find a section that states that the logo is to be used in the full color variant when possible, with very few, if any, exceptions. Usually the only exceptions are for single color print. Looking back at our last image, we see that these are actually full color logos which have been desaturated to grayscale and not black and white, which as we've just seen is against the rules. Why are desaturated grayscale versions such a problem? The reason this is such a problem is because most brand guidelines will strictly state not to use a desaturated grayscale version of the logo for single color usage, but instead to use a black and white version of the logo. If we look at the Microsoft logo in desaturated grayscale versus black and white, we can see that the full black and white version has a much stronger presence than the desaturated version, and that the desaturated version has variations in the colors. This is because when you desaturate a color, you simply remove the color information while the shading information remains. If you make the logo completely black and white, or gray in the case of Google, it has a much more quality appearance than the desaturated version. Some brands are even more strict. Airbnb, for example, according to what we could find, states in their brand guidelines that their logo is only ever to be displayed in Airbnb white or pink, and does not give any exceptions for the logo to be displayed in grayscale or black and white. Now if we look at the image with the logos generally following their guidelines, there is a big difference. Instead of bland, lifeless logos, we see that these are in fact quite vibrant, while also being significantly more versatile as they are now easier to read, they scale significantly better, and are much more impactful, especially in foreign markets. With that, hopefully now there is a better understanding of how these logos are meant to be used and how the image we started with is so misleading. If this video has been helpful, then please feel free to share it anytime you see this image or one like it posted, or anytime you believe that could be helpful to someone else. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.